In early 2012, a motion camera hidden in Griffith Park, the rugged sprawl of hills in the middle of Los Angeles, ringed by millions of people and some of the busiest freeways on Earth, photographed an animal that had no business being there. A mountain lion, a full-grown apex predator, 90 pounds of muscle, living in a city park barely 8 square miles across, within sight of the Hollywood sign. The first reaction among the biologists who set the camera was disbelief. Mountain lions need room. A single adult male will range across 150 square miles and kill any rival that enters it. Griffith Park is a fraction of that, an island of brush surrounded on every side by pavement and houses and traffic. For a lion to be living in it meant one of two things, and the impossible one turned out to be true. This cat had not always been there. He had come from somewhere else, and to get to the middle of Los Angeles, he had crossed two of the deadliest freeways in America, the 405 and the 101, and lived. It would mean less if he were the only one. He was the visible tip of something most of the city never sees. The cat was given a name that was really a catalog number, P22, the 22nd puma in a National Park Service study that had been tracking mountain lions across the Los Angeles area since 2002. He became famous a year later when a photographer named Steve Winter spent 15 months running camera traps in Griffith Park. They kept getting stolen, until one of them caught P22 walking beneath the illuminated letters of the Hollywood sign. The picture ran in National Geographic in December 2013 and turned an anonymous cat into a celebrity. But the fame obscured the larger fact underneath it. P22 wasn't a wilderness animal that had wandered somewhere strange. He was one of an entire population of mountain lions living in and against the city of Los Angeles, in the canyons above the mansions, in the chaparral behind the houses, moving through the dark while millions of people below them slept. Los Angeles is one of only 2 megacities on Earth, alongside Mumbai and its leopards, known to have big cats living inside it. They had been there the whole time. This is the space the whole story lives in. These are not lost animals that strayed into town. They are a resident population that lives at the edge of the city and sometimes inside it. But they are not thriving there either. They are trapped, isolated, and dying on the roads in numbers that threaten to erase them. The cats are wild and present and almost completely unseen, and the city that contains them is, very quietly, killing them. To understand how a 200-pound predator can live beside millions of people, you have to understand the animal. Puma concaller, cougar, mountain lion, panther, puma, is the most adaptable large predator in the Americas, an animal that ranges from the Canadian Rockies to the tip of Chile, across deserts, forests, and mountains alike. That adaptability lets it live closer to people than almost any other big cat on Earth. They are in the hills above the Bay Area, in the foothills of Denver and Boulder, in the canyons that thread into Los Angeles, hunting deer, raising cubs, crossing suburban streets at 2 in the morning, while the people in the houses below live their whole lives without seeing one. What made P22 extraordinary was never that a cougar lived near a city, it was where he ended up, and the gauntlet he ran to get there. His journey is almost hard to believe. P22 was born on the western side of the Santa Monica Mountains, fathered by a lion the researchers called P1. To reach Griffith Park at the eastern end of that range, he had to cross the 405 freeway, 10-plus lanes, one of the most heavily trafficked roads in the world, then work his way through the estates of Bel Air, over Mulholland Drive, and across the 101 near the Hollywood Bowl. In more than 2 decades of tracking dozens of lions, biologists have never documented another cat crossing both freeways and surviving. On the far side, P22 found a kind of paradise, an 8-square-mile park stocked with mule deer and empty of rival lions, a territory he never had to fight for, but it came with a sentence. He could not cross back. For the next 10 years, P22 lived alone in the middle of Los Angeles, a male in his prime who never once found a mate, the most famous bachelor in the city, pacing a territory too small for his kind beneath the Hollywood sign. And his isolation was a smaller version of a trap that is closed around the cats he left behind. The freeways of Los Angeles do not just kill mountain lions, they imprison them. The 101, Nub Day, the Ventura Freeway, built in the 1950s, sliced the Santa Monica Mountains off from the ranges to the north and the development that followed sealed the cut. The lions caught on the southern side cannot get out, and new lions cannot get in. Since 2002, National Park Service biologists have tracked more than 50 mountain lions in the region, and in all that time, only a single male, P12, is known to have crossed the 101 into the Santa Monica Mountains from the north. His arrival briefly added new blood. Then he mated with 2 of his own daughters and a granddaughter. At least 32 of the region's lions have been killed by cars. The mountains became an island, and the cats on it began breeding with their own families because there was no one else. What that isolation is doing to them is the part that should be alarming, because it is no longer theoretical. In 2016, a team of scientists from the Park Service, UCLA, UC Davis, and Utah State University modeled the future of the Santa Monica Mountains lions and published the result in the Proceedings of the Royal Society B. Without new genetic input, they found, the population had a 99.7% chance of going extinct within 50 years, and the bodies of the cats are already showing why. Biologists have begun documenting the physical marks of inbreeding: kinked tails, males with only one descended testicle, and sperm that came back in tested animals, 93% malformed. These are the exact signs that nearly drove the Florida panther extinct in the early 1990s before it was rescued with imported cats. The most adaptable predator in the hemisphere, brought to the edge not by hunting or poison or hatred, but by traffic. There was one mercy hidden in the same model. If just one outside lion could reach the population every 2 years, the extinction risk dropped from 99.7% all the way down to 2.4%. The problem was never that the cats couldn't recover, it was that they couldn't cross the road. The strangest thing about all of this is that you could live in Los Angeles your entire life, a few miles from these animals, and never see one. Exactly as most of the city never saw a P22 in the decade he spent in its center. Mountain lions are built to be invisible. They are solitary, almost entirely nocturnal, and instinctively avoid people. A cougar will watch a hiker from the brush and let them pass without ever revealing itself. The cats living in the hills above the western cities move within yards of houses, cross backyards and trailheads in the dark, and vanish before dawn. That invisibility is not a sign that they are absent. It is the entire reason they can live where they do. An animal that hid as well as P22 did could spend 10 years in the second largest city in America, photographed beneath its most famous landmark, and still be a creature almost no resident ever laid eyes on. The objection most people have is not whether the cats are there, but whether a predator that size living in a city is dangerous. And the honest answer is reassuring. Mountain lions avoid humans, and attacks are extraordinarily rare. Far rarer than dog attacks, or lightning strikes, or bee stings. P22 lived for a decade surrounded by millions of people and never harmed a single one. If anything, the danger runs the other way. It is the cats that are dying, struck on the freeways, poisoned by the rat bait that works its way up the food chain. The same rodenticide that gave P22 a debilitating case of mange. And when P22's behavior did change at the very end of his life, when he began attacking leashed pets near Griffith Park, it was not a healthy predator turning bold. It was a sick, injured, dying animal, as the necropsy would later confirm. Honesty requires keeping the rest of it in proportion too. P22 was exceptional, not the rule. Most mountain lions never go near a dense city core. They live in the hills and canyons at the wild edges of town, in the seam where the chaparral meets the last row of houses, not downtown. They do occasionally kill pets. P22 took a leashed dog, and almost certainly the koala that vanished from the Los Angeles Zoo, which the Park Service called normal predatory behavior. So the risk to a small animal left out at night is real, even as the risk to people stays vanishingly small. And the phrase, moving into cities, oversells it for most of the country. This is overwhelmingly a Western, mountain-adjacent story. Cougars pressed against the edges of cities built up against their habitat. Not lions colonizing Manhattan. The real story does not need the exaggeration, because the real story is stranger and sadder than the myth of a predator invasion. The science does not claim mountain lions are taking over American cities. It claims something more precise, that the most adaptable big cat in the Western Hemisphere is living right at the edge of and sometimes in the very heart of, our largest western cities, in numbers most residents never suspect, and that our freeways are quietly turning those populations into genetic islands that could vanish within a single human lifetime. P-22 was never a freak of nature. He was a messenger, an apex predator that crossed two of the deadliest freeways in America to live alone beneath the Hollywood sign, and in doing so, revealed to 13 million people the wild animal that had been living beside them all along. So it ends where it began, in Griffith Park, with a lion under the Hollywood sign. In December 2022, P-22 was struck by a car on a Los Feliz street at night, the fate he had escaped twice on the freeways finally catching him. And after a final examination revealed catastrophic injuries and failing health, he was euthanized. But his 10 solitary years in the middle of Los Angeles changed the city that watched him. His face raised the money for the largest wildlife crossing in the world, a green bridge of soil and brush now spanning 10 lanes of the 101, set to open at the end of 2026, built so that the next mountain lion will not have to gamble its life on the freeway to find a mate. The lions are still up there tonight, in the hills above the headlights, moving through the dark the way they always have. The wild thing that never left the city, that most of its people will live their whole lives beside and never once see.